is. Here we go. So, oh, hold on. Gotta make sure everybody's on my. There we go. Except for, well, those people who are doing the Digital 3 stuff, you can go ahead and shrink that window because I'm not going to figure out where you're at. All right, so we're going to actually go in and open up a file. We're going to be working with this different selection tools and some different effects and things with this. And so as we work with these, just kind of think about what the icon is, what it's associated with, and then that way eventually when you're working on projects and different things, you're going to remember which might be a better tool as far as selection goes for the different things that you're going to do. But anyways, the first thing we're going to do is go into that Photos for PS and open up Coin or Coins. So if you can go in there and right click it, download, right click and download, and then click it. It'll open up in Photoshop for you. You should see some coins here. And we are going to do some stuff to those coins. Just a minute. So we're going to actually zoom in on one of those coins, and you're going to use an elliptical marquee tool to position the circle over the coin. So if you could go ahead and I'm actually going to use the magnifying glass because with the magnifying glass, when you zoom, you can actually draw a rectangle and it zooms to the extent of that rectangle, just like that. And I'm going to actually go ahead and deal with this one here. So up here on the left, this is the kind of marquee tools family up here. And so there's a rectangle, an elliptical marquee tool, and then I don't even know what you would use a single row and single column marquee tool for. That's just kind of weird to me. It always has been, but it's there. So I'm going to the elliptical marquee tool, and I'm going to actually show you a little trick here. If you go to View, Show, Guides. Where's Guides? I'm not seeing my guides. Oh, View Rulers. My bad. Go to View Rulers. We can actually kind of create some precision here by creating a guide that runs tangent. We're going to use those words, or just kind of touches the tip of that first circle there, and then drag one from the side and get one there. And the reason I'm doing this is because if you start using the elliptical tool from up here, you can basically, you know that the left edge of the circle and the right edge of the circle is going to be where those things touch. So that's the way I usually deal with trying to create a circle with precision. And then if you drag one, just kind of make a box that this all fits in. You start here with that elliptical marquee tool, and then go to that opposite corner. It'll be a perfect selection of that. And so you can do that with whatever coin you're deciding to do that with. And we're going to move on to the next thing with that, which is, oh, by the way, you can also use the Shift key to make sure the circle is perfect if you'd like, but well, all that does is it basically constrains the proportions. So, like with a circle, you know that's one radius all the way around, that's what creates a circle, but if it's a ellipse, there's actually multiple radii, depending on where it happens in the ellipse. So you can do that, but we're not doing that. Another thing you can do is if you need to move your selection, you can hold down the space bar and you can move around so you can see different parts of the image. So if you need to move around to do that, you can. But anyways, let's see. I lost it again. We're going to go to select inverse. So in Photoshop, there's this select menu, and this will be your friend because there's going to be lots of things that you're going to need to select. You might even have to save selections. I'll show you how to do that later. But even being able to select by a color range or an area of focus and shrinking and growing your selection, which we'll get to also. But if you go to select inverse, what that's going to do is make your little marching ants surround everything except for the coin there. So I have these marching ants. That means whatever I do is going to affect everything but that coin. And what we're going to do is add a blur to it. And I think they said, what, motion blur? Yeah. So if you go to filter, right up here, and then go down to blur, and then motion blur, filter, blur, motion blur. Wow. Use your words. Filter, blur, motion blur. You'll see a little preview box pop up. And if you actually click the little checkbox that says preview, mine is super laggy right now, but if you actually click that, you can see a preview of it down here of what it looks like. And I don't know if they gave a specific thing. No. So you can adjust this as much as you want. If you move it more and more to the right, it's going to like really blur things. You could do a kind of more of a minimal blur. Or, here's the other thing, motion blur implies that you're kind of maybe moving your head back and forth and everything's getting blurry. So you could change the angle and be like, I'm nodding my head instead. Or you can do like diagonal. I don't know, like you're doing a little like disco dance or whatever. And so yeah, you can play around with the angle as well with this. And when you click OK, boom, it's going to apply that. That's what's called a destructive edit. This is why you should not be on anything but Photoshop right now. So unless you want me to just take you out completely on that screen over there. Anyways, what was I about to say? Oh yeah, so it's a destructive edit. What it does is it permanently changes the pixels that you edit in this. So with a filter, unless you set up a smart layer, it's basically saying what we did to this pixel is permanent. When you save it, if you try to go back and undo or edit or anything like that, too bad, so sad. But sometimes it's important to be able to do a destructive edit, depending on what effect you're trying to achieve, because not everything works with smart filters and things like that. Sorry for the interruption there. Alright, so the next thing we're going to do is click on File, Revert, and this is something that will benefit you greatly. If you ever do a bunch of stuff to a picture and you hadn't saved it yet, it's what Revert does is takes you back to the beginning when you open the file, or till your last save at least. So if you don't save anything and for some reason you need to just get back to where you were, you can. So I know some of you guys who might have had some difficulty on the last thing might have benefited from that, but whatever. And then the next thing that it says to do is try it a couple times. I'm just going to have you guys try it one more time. And you can try it a different way. You can try it without the guides and see what happens if you hold down the Shift key. And, whoops, I was holding caps lock. And so if you hold down the Shift key, problem is these coins are actually more elliptical than they are round because of the way that we're looking at them. But you won't notice it too much. But if you go Select, Inverse, and then Filter, you can even play with some other things on here. But I'm going to do Radial Blur this time. Radial Blur is kind of fun. It's not previewing though. That's weird. And the Zoom Blur is also cool. I'm going to do the Zoom Blur. This is pretty awesome. You click OK. Boom. So, kind of creates a cool effect. Once you have done that a couple times, the next thing we want to do is go to File, Save As, and we're going to change the name of this to My Coins. And you're going to end up turning that in a little bit. So just make sure that you've tried it out for a second. And I'm going to pause this. Open up Portrait. We're going to do another kind of selection thing. So if you can go back to Photos for PS and locate Portrait, should find this picture of this kid with the purple shirt. Go to download, right click it, go to download, and it's going to actually be a JPEG. You cannot click that and have it open in Photoshop automatically. It's going to open up in a photo browser. So instead of doing that, here's another trick. You just go to the little caret down there, do show in folder, and then you'll find the file in there, drag it into Photoshop, and drop it on the menu bar. It will open up a new tab. If you drop it into this actual canvas area, it's going to add it as a layer in there, and we don't want to do that. We want it to be by itself. So open up Portrait. We're going to have a little fun with this, I think. I don't remember, but I remember something being funny about this one. Alright, so we're going to use what's called the magnetic lasso. And the lasso tools, lasso selection tools are nice because you can kind of freehand create a selection. And I believe we're going to do something with this kid's head. Select the magnetic lasso, trace around the boy. Oh, we're tracing around the whole boy. But you can just trace around his head. And so what we're going to do, if you go to this lasso family and go down to the one that has like a magnet kind of thing over it, and then just kind of start somewhere on his face, and you move the mouse like kind of just close to the edge of his face. For the most part, it should do a pretty good job of selecting. What's going to happen is when you get to places where his hair is pretty close to the color in the background, it's going to try to trace part of the background. So like this thing, it's going to look like he has a shark fin on his head. If you see like that. But don't worry about that. We can fix it later. I'll show you another trick. Bless you. So I'm just kind of tracing around this kid's head. And once I get done tracing his head, I want to show you a little trick here. If you go to this magnetic lasso tool, and then you just find a thing and you hold down your mouse and trace around his head slowly. Now, when you're working with selections, it's tempting to like freak out whenever it doesn't select perfectly. But if you don't worry about it and go back in and fix it, it's probably going to be a little bit more productive. So what I'm going to do is go back to the regular polygonal lasso tool, not the lasso tool, but the polygonal lasso tool. And I'm going to hold down Alt. And when I do that, I don't know if you guys can see it on your view of my screen, but on mine I see a little minus sign pop up. So when you hold down Alt, basically that's going to allow you to create a selection that subtracts from the one that you have. So I was able to shave off that little dolphin fin he had on his head. And I can go along the edges and just kind of clean it up a little bit. His face here, I'm missing a little chunk there. It looks like something came and like took a bite out of his chin. So if I hold down Shift, I get a plus sign. And I can just kind of click along, play and connect the dots. And then go back in. When I double click, it's selected more of his chin. You can take that little whisker or whatever that is, not whisker, but you know, it's selection makes it look like that. And Alt, select that, and it deletes it. So Alt subtracts, and Shift adds. Shift adds, Alt subtracts. Alright, so the next thing it has us doing is trace around the boy, double click to end the lasso. Once you get it, select the move tool and move the object. So once we have his head, we can decapitate him. Fun. Yay! Decapitating the head. And you can also hold down the Alt key, and if you do that, you can make a copy of his head. So we can turn him into like three-headed monster boy. So there's some little tricks with that. I kind of just gave you a little bonus there. Let's see, double click in the lasso, select the move tool, move the object, practice selecting the file called cookie. We're going to do that in a second. And that's that. So I'm going to go ahead and pause this.